Hey guys, Sustained 16th Music here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to read music. So I'm going to start with treble clef, then I'm going to go to bass clef, then I'm going to go to rhythms, and then finally I'm going to do like miscellaneous things that you'll need to know just for everything. So I'll try and remember to leave timestamps to all those parts, like if you play the trombone and don't need to read treble clef, or if you're a percussionist and don't want to learn treble clef or bass clef yet, then I'll leave timestamps if I remember. So treble clef looks like this. I'm going to assume you guys know nothing. So that's what a treble clef looks like. That's not perfect, but that's more or less what it looks like. Alright, so on the treble clef, there's 5 lines, and the lines are E, G, B, D, F, from bottom to top. So every good boy does fine, every good boy deserves fudge. Yeah, there are a bunch of acronyms, and you can even make one up. And then the spaces, F-A-C-E, and that spells face from bottom to top, so it's pretty easy to remember. So if you had a note on the bottom line, that is an E because it's the bottom line. If you have it up here, that's also an E because it's the top space. Here is a B, and you can't just, like, immediately know it. It's going to take a while, because at the start, you're going to have to look every time. Like, okay, if you have your thing and there's one here, you're going to have to be like, okay, that's on a line, so we'll do every good boy deserves, okay, that's a D. But after a while, you'll just memorize the placements of everything. So that's basically treble clef. Now on to bass clef. Alright, so the bass clef basically just looks like that. It's hard to draw, but there's that. And then it also has 5 lines. And for the bass clef, the way it goes is the lines are great, G, B, D, F, A. Great big dogs from Alaska. Great big dogs fight alligators. Yeah, so those are the lines. And the spaces, all cows eat grass. Yeah, all cows eat grass. So from bottom to top. So bass clef is a bit trickier because it's 2 acronyms. There's no like face for the spaces, but so basically if you had your 5 lines, let's say you had a note here, that's a D, up here an A. So at the start, again, just like treble clef, you're not going to be able to just immediately go for it. You're going to have to take some time, just spend with it, because if you looked at that, if I was a beginner, I would be like, okay, that's on a space, so all cows, that's a C. But after you get familiar with it and see it and associate it with that note all the time, it'll just become second nature to you. There's also movable C clef, and that one, almost no one uses it, and if you want to learn that, just look up how to read movable C clef. And yeah, alright, so Now on to rhythms. So I'm going to be not doing this in a clef, I'm just going to be showing you. So if it's filled in completely with a stem without a flag on it, that is a quarter note. If it's open with a stem without a flag, it's a half note. If it's open with nothing, it's a whole note. So if you think of a measure, you have, let's say it's in 4/4 time. I'll get to time signatures later. You basically have, in each thing, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So a whole note takes up all of that. It'll go from 1 to 4. So you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's a whole note. A half note only takes up 2, so 1, 2, that's a half note. And a quarter note just takes up 1, so 1, 1, 1. So if you had, and there are 4, in 4/4 there's 4 beats per measure, so after you have 4, there's a line, and then it continues. So say you had just so there we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 4. So I hope you can see how they make up. So for counting rhythms, the way I was taught is when you tap your foot to the rhythm, you have a downbeat and an upbeat. The down is on 1, the up is on the and. An and or a te is like an 8th note. So it's solid with a stem and a flag. So 1 te, and then another down, so that would be a 2. 1 te, 2 te. So on the counting, you put inflections on every up and down. So you would go 1, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 4. So as you can see, let me just copy that down here real quick. We have 1, and that is with a down part of our foot, and then we go 1, because you're going up again, and then the 2, since you're still sustaining, it's silent, so you go 1, because there's another upbeat there, and that's all in this half note. And then over here, 1, 3, 4, because there are 2 inflections, because there's a down and an up there. And then for this, it would be 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 te, 2 te, 3 te, 4 te. So there's that. And for more complicated rhythms, so this is an 8th note. That is 2 8th notes. They sometimes just have it be flagged, and sometimes they have it be beamed together like that, but you just need to know that those are 8th notes. So 1 te, 2 te, 3 te, 4 te. Those are 8th notes. So here, we'll show you a dot. So a dot, if you put a dot onto a note, it adds half of the value. So this is a half note, so it goes for 2, and half of 2 is 1, so plus 1. So in this instance, the half note gets 1 count, so the dot gets an extra count, so it's 1, 1 te, 2 te, 3 te. And then if you had a quarter note with a dot on it, it would be 1 because of the regular, and then half of 1 is an eighth note, so it would be plus an eighth note. I hope this is making sense. And if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause and let stuff sink in. So 1, that is a dotted quarter because you have the 1, but then you have an extra eighth, so you just go 1, and then there's no up. So 1, 1. So if you had like a dotted quarter, an eighth, a dotted quarter, and a dotted quarter, this won't add up to 4, but I'm just showing you. You would have 1 te, 3 te, 1 and 2 te, 3 te. Wait, so that's eighth notes and dots, and this or this is a 16th notes. 1 ti teta, 2 ti teta, 3 ti teta, 4 ti teta, 1 teta, 2 te, 3 ti te, 4. So usually you'll see 16th notes like this. 1 ti te ta. So down, and on the te it goes up again. So 1 ti teta, 1 ti teta, 1 ti teta, 2 ti teta. That's when it gets more difficult because it's not always 1 te, 2 te, down, up, down, up. You have 1 ti teta, 1 ti teta. Even though you're not having an up or a down on the T's and the tas. So it's a bit more difficult, but we've done it for a while, so yeah. So here, if you had this would be 1, a down with your foot, and then there's a whole eighth note away. So this is an up and a te, and then that's the ta. So there's no T here, but there's an imaginary T. So it's 1 teta, 1 teta, 1 teta. And here, 1 ti te. So here it's 1 T and then immediately a te. 1 ti te. Because this is an eighth note, so it only has an eighth. There's no ta because you don't need a ta there because that's taken up by the eighth note. So it's 1 ti te, 1 ti te. I hope you guys are understanding this. Let's turn over a new sheet. Alright, so you could also have this. Okay, so normally an eighth note is just 1 and that's it. Well, there would be a T. 1 T, 1 T, 1 T, 1 T. But you don't say the T because it's just an eighth note. So normally it's just 1 T, and then the te would be on the next eighth note. But you add half of the value, so you add a 16th note. So you then add in the te, 1 ti te, 1 ti te, and then this takes care of the ta. So it's 1 ta, 1 ta, 1 ti te ta, 1 ti te ta, 1 ti te ta, but you don't say the T or the T, so it's one ta, one ta, one ta, one ta, one T ta, one ta. I hope that makes sense. So that's basically rhythms. Now I'm going to go on to miscellaneous things. So this is a time signature. The top note is how many beats per measure. And the bottom note is what note gets the beat. So the most common one is 4/4, and it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you'll have 3/4. That's another common one, and that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then 2/4, 1, 2, 1, 2. And so there's that. And then the bottom, so you can see like how many beats in a measure. In 4 there's 1, 2, 3, 4. In 3, 1, 2, 3. In 2, 1, 2. So that makes sense. The bottom, it's a little bit trickier, but it's basically what note gets the beat. So 4 is a quarter note. 4 quarter. 8 is an eighth. And 2 is a half note. So basically, yeah. So if you say have 4/8 time, which is not a very common time signature, but we're just keeping it at 4 for now, that would mean an eighth note got a beat, and there are 4 beats per measure. So this is what one measure would look like. That's one measure. This would be another measure. Because if an eighth note gets 1 beat, then, and there's 4 beats per measure, this would be 2 eighth notes, then another 2 eighth notes. So that's 4. And for, let's say, 6/8. So an eighth note gets a beat, and there's 6 eighth notes. So that would be 3 quarter notes. There would be 3 quarter notes in a 6/8 bar. Though it's a bit more complicated with this, with 6/8, because you have eighth notes like that. So it's more 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So there is still the same, because those 2 would go to that, those 2 would go to that, and those 2 would go to that. So there's still 3 quarter notes, but they're just grouped differently. So there's that. And for, so if you had 4, 2, a half note would get the beat, and there's 4 beats per measure. So that would mean a bar of 4/2 would look like that. 4 half notes. Or 2 whole notes. So then there's also, so if you see a C where the time signature is, that's common time. And if you see a C with a line through it, that's cut time, which is 2/2 time. So 2/2 time, there's 2 beats per measure, and a half note gets the beat. So half note, 1 beat, and then 2 beats. So that's a measure of 2 of cut time. And common time is 4/4. So 4 beats per measure, and a quarter note gets a beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. They're both the same. The difference is, this is getting into more, it's common stuff, but it's kind of tricky if you don't understand it. So they're basically the same, but with 4/4 time, a beat 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 4 quarter notes like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just regular like that. And for cut time, 2, 2, if you have a half note gets 1 beat, so 1, 2, 1, 2. So a quarter note would actually be an 8th note. And an 8th note would be a 16th note, and down from there, because you pretend like half notes are quarter notes, basically. So cut time basically goes twice as fast as 4/4 time. So like if you had this in 4/4, it's obviously 1, 2, 3, 4. But if that was in cut time, it would be 1 te 2 te. So some people with cut time, instead of doing cut time, they just do fast 4, but they count super fast. But people do cut time so that you don't have to be going, so that you can just go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, because it gets hard to go that fast. So now, miscellaneous stuff. This is a crescendo, which means get louder. Decrescendo, get quiet. This is soft. This is loud. This is medium. So if you have that's super soft. That's super loud. That's kind of soft. And that's kind of loud. What else? This, on top of the staff, is a breath mark, which means just breathe. Or lift your fingers if you're playing piano. What else is there? This means hold the note that you're on for a bit longer than is supposed to happen. It's not a specified amount of time. It's just whatever feels right. And it's called a fermata. This is a double bar line, and it's what happens when you come to the end of the song. This means repeat. And at the start, there will be a backwards repeat sign, and that says where you repeat to. So you would basically repeat that. This is flat, and it basically means lower the note by a half step. So if you said, okay, here we have our G in treble clef, that would be a B if it was in bass clef, but it's in treble clef, so it's a G. And if you had a flat right here, then that would be actually a G flat. So there's that, which is the same thing as an F sharp, but you'll learn that if you watch my more in-depth theory video. And flat signs carry in through the rest of the measure. So if you had, say, this, let's put this in bass clef for all the bass clef people. And you said, alright, so here we're going to have a quarter note here, flat like that, and then you go up here for a half note, and then you go down here for a quarter note again. So that would be an A flat, and then to a B, and then back down to an A flat, because even though the flat is way over here, it carries through the whole entire measure until you come to one of these, and that means it doesn't carry through anymore. So if you had another right there, that would just be an A natural. Unless you have, say, we'll go back to treble clef, and then you have a flat there, and then 4/4, and then the thing starts. So that is called a key signature, and that basically tells you what notes you're going to flat for the whole entire song. So that looks like it's on the space, but it's actually on the line. Sorry, but that's supposed to be on the line. So every B that you come across, no matter where in the song, is going to be flat, unless there's a natural sign right there. And a natural sign just looks like that. So flat, and then this is a sharp, which means raise the note by a half step.